Suggestion? I've got to leave soon, so I wanted to get in one quick suggestion before I leave. And I discussed this with my group at the table for lunch just now, but I wanted to discuss it with everybody. I think if I leave you with one parting thought, it's that don't assume that people are altruistic. People are selfish, and people care about themselves. And they care whether they're going to live a long time, whether their disease is going to be wiped out, whether their aging can be eradicated. The goal of this organization is, if it's to be successful, you need to get the point across in all your marketing and advertising that you can end aging for you, the person that's watching this ad. You can end cancer for you and your loved ones. But if your goal is going to be an altruistic, mishy-mashy, we're going to solve the world's problems, I don't know that anybody cares. I think people care whether they can live a long time.
Good point.
So aim it at the person, because people care about their lives.
Quick interjection here, because this is one of the things that showed up at this conference as a possible collaboration. It's not along the strict party line of what this event was designed for, but I think is an important one. And because Michael's going to scoot here, I want to be sure that these guys, Darlene McCord has just written, was at a book signing yesterday in Miami for her book titled How to Live to 100 Well? Something like that.
Living Well at 100.
Living Well at 100. Yeah. And she is going to be given on December 3rd in New York City the United Nations Humanitarian of the Year Award.
Wow.
So what I want nobody cares about anybody but themselves, and that is true, but it's also true that people do care about other people, and that's what this is about. So I'm going to let them tell you what their potential collaboration is, I think, and this is one of those things that showed up. I said on day one, we don't even know what's going to show up, but this is the kind of thing I was talking about.
Part of Oliver's conversation today to all of us was about networking and how we can use tools that we haven't thought about before. But some of the tools we can use today to get the information of longevity out is a different type of networking. It's a time-tested networking. It's why Michael is here. It's why I am here. I wrote a book, and it got to Greta. I read about the people that were going to attend this meeting, and I went out of my way to reach out to Michael. Both of us do philanthropy work in Africa. And what I think is important is if you want to get out your message on longevity, you have to have a lot of avenues. And one of them is that if through your giving, and ours is the Borelli Ulcer Foundation, which is a tragic flesh-eating skin disease for children under the age of 15, people see me. Maybe it's at the United Nations, maybe it's at a book signing, but I'm talking about aging. I'm talking about the ability to live this bridge that all of you are talking about. I make my money in skin and wound care. I have the largest skin and wound care line sold in hospitals, and I use that money for philanthropy. So I got the opportunity to come and meet Michael, who is doing work with water. And the disease that I fight so hard against is born in water. So I would say to you that if you would look beyond your own subject matter of longevity and look for ways to put yourself out in front of cameras in a very positive light, one of trying to help others, because longevity to us in this meeting may be 100 or 120 years, but to a child in Africa it may be 6. And we need to show that we care at both ends of the spectrum.
So it was funny that we met at this conference because we hadn't really planned that. But one of the things we do is we do water filtration, and the UN gives us carbon credits. And so one of the interesting things is that some of the diseases we're talking about are waterborne diseases. We also have another mutual connection, which is NASA. So the water engineers that I work with are the same people who have done water filtration on space station. And so we do a triple water filtration. We do gravel, sand, and then UV lighting. We hit the water with UV lighting, which gets rid of the bacteria. So, but one of the interesting things, and so there's lots of potential for collaboration, which I'm excited about. But I guess the common theme for me is how do you do financing for high impact projects, and that's what we're here today to deal with. Our small project just in rural Rwanda is going to have a positive impact on 250,000 people in 5 years. So it's the same challenge that we're dealing with, which is how do we have that impact? And it's interesting if you look at something like global warming, which actually doesn't. I mean, it's interesting how that's been sold to people. I'm not making a scientific evaluation on whether it's sound science or not science. But the point is that it's had a huge impact, and Al Gore had a huge impact with his documentary film. And so the point is how do we reach out? How do we become? I mean, you would think that life extension actually has more meaning to individuals, more immediate meaning than something like global warming, which of course has impact, but maybe longer term. And I think that one of the things that I've looked at in the past when we've tried to take some of these big projects on, one of the things is political action committees. If you look at something like the NRA, it's like $10 million that goes into impacting political campaigns. And I think if this movement's going to be serious, you have to look about how you're going to set up a political action committee, not just in terms of informational material and awareness, and not just in terms of advocacy, but how do you manipulate the political process. And I think that in this community, if we focus on prizes for specific diseases, and we go to the Diabetes Foundation and say, look, we've got elements of life extension that relate specifically to what you're interested in, and we want to set up a prize. I mean, you can imagine hundreds of prizes being set up, but also going back to NIH and saying, look, we've got this with a nonprofit foundation, we've maybe got other high net worth people, but we want NIH to put in another 10 or 20 or 30 million dollars into this specific element. And I think there's a lot of potential for having a high impact. And I think lastly, one of the things that Dave Kekich had challenged us a few years ago was, is it possible to create a mutual fund, or is it possible to create a financing initiative? And it could be some sort of hybrid approach, which might be a nonprofit, but somehow maybe connected with a mutual fund. And I've done a lot of work looking into this, and I can tell you it's very challenging. There's no simple answers. But I can just tell you one of the little pieces of research I've done is I have a colleague in London that's about to launch a nonprofit entity, and they are using black box technology, financial trading technology, which basically creates value, earns money on indexes, on currency indexes, fluctuation in currency indexes. And the system's been up and running for a year, and they've had tremendous returns. Starting January, we're going to use it for the first nonprofit. So there are structures out there, and once again, I don't have all the answers. It turns out that this particular type of trading has actually now been outlawed in the United States, which is going long and short simultaneously if you're a if you're a licensed dealer. So that's been outlawed. And then secondarily, in terms of nonprofit groups, there's sometimes issues about fiduciary responsibilities related to the financing part and related to the nonprofit. So there's a bunch of issues that have to be worked through, but I'm just simply challenging people that there are ways and solutions and structures. So if we can do it, we can have a tremendous impact, and that's what Darlene and I are here for, is a big impact.
What Michael was alluding to as well is an endowment type of fund, where we would not invade the principal, which is an idea that we played with in the past at Max Life, but a variation of it would be very simple. The returns he was talking about are way above average. Drawdowns, if you know what that means, the most you can lose in one period of time, is about 10%. And that's very manageable. And this is one thing that we can kick around. Rather than, I was going to use that as one of the topics today. I have a lot of topics that we were going to cover. We could be here for days and keep on brainstorming. And our time is limited. Just 1 second, please, Greta. I know Michael has to leave shortly. Wayne has to leave shortly. So, and as some people here may have to catch an airplane or go check out of the room or have another obligation, I would like to encourage you, whether you leave early or late or whenever, to jot down your recommendations and ideas and suggestions. I'm taking notes. This is videotape, but you're going to have an inspiration on the way home. You're going to have an inspiration in the shower. And some of this is going to sink in, and you'll think of something 2 or 3 or 4 days from now. Please email me when you get those inspirations, or anytime you can write something down, an idea that you think might work. We'll organize it. And we'll do follow-up. It won't be overnight because we need a staff, but we'll take care of these things. My email address, if you don't have it, is Kekich, Kekich, at maxlife.org.